Good afternoon. This is Malar from Hearts and Minds Development Center. Thank you for joining us again, and I hope everything is looking well. I'm managing on my own today, so if there are any hiccups, keep letting me know what's actually happening. So, welcome again to our Being Whole, Being Me series. We're very happy to welcome a new guest today, and this month is special because it is the Merdeka month, and we are going to be talking about what does it mean to being the nation that we want. And today we have a very special guest who said yes to us, Adi Ayadali, and he is the publicity director for Befrienders KL. Without further ado, I'm just going to welcome Adi, and I hope you will welcome him with me.
Hi,
Hi,
Malal.
Adi. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
And so thanks for making it today. Thank you for being here today. And we already have our good friend Gerald Fernandez who's saying good afternoon, Mother. Another wonderful Friday. Thank you, Gerald, for always being there for us. So tell me, Adi, how are you feeling at this moment?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, thanks.
And so, like what I said, thank you for saying yes. And I was, really glad that you said yes when I asked you. So, you are the publicity director for Befrienders KL.
Yes, that's right. And yeah, and I'm also a volunteer for Befrienders KL.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more, a peek into who is this Adi, because I don't know whether you know Safina.
Yes, of course, a close friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, so she got so excited when she saw the poster that you were coming. And she said, I know this guy. So, but I realized I don't know anything about you. So, can you tell us a little bit of your personal background, whatever that you're willing to share with the public?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, funny you should mention Safina because we met through basketball. So I'm a huge basketball fan, and I also used to play basketball. Not much anymore. Yeah, and that's how we met. And yeah, other than basketball, I'm also a huge sports fan. Yeah. So on my spare time, I do watch a lot of sports.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah.
And so you're you're met through games. Is that what you're saying?
Sorry.
You met Safina because you all share the same interest in games.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Nice. All right. So tell us a little bit about Befrienders. I know a lot of people would have heard of Befrienders, especially now during this pandemic time.
Mhm.
But tell us really, what is Befrienders for people who may not have heard of Befrienders, and what is your role as a publicity director in Befrienders KL?
All right. Okay. So Befrienders Kuala Lumpur has been around for a very long time. So we started in 1970, and we've been around that long. So what we do mainly is to provide emotional support and a listening ear to those who are feeling distressed and suicidal, and we do this mainly through our 24-hour telephone hotline, also email, and also face to face. Of course, we don't do face to face now because of the pandemic. Yeah, but we used to do that. And so basically, in Befrienders, there are also like board of directors that are being elected from the pool of volunteers, and I came into that role a few years back. So my role is mainly to actually promote our services, yeah, let people know that we exist, things like that, so that those who actually in need of someone to talk to can actually call us.
Nice. So, what was your first time? Do you remember how you were introduced to Befrienders for the first time?
Okay, so yeah, it's quite ironic because saying that Befrienders has been around since 1970, I actually only heard of it for the first time in the early 2000s. Yeah, so it actually piqued my interest because I never knew that such organization existed in the first place, and I was quite amazed looking at the way they operate and how they actually help people regardless of their background, their problems and things like that. And yeah, that made me wanting to know more about the organization, so I actually signed up to volunteer with them.
Right. So what was the turning point for you when you say I'm going to volunteer with Befrienders? There must be something. I mean, there are many voluntary organizations, and I'm sure you were exposed to quite a number. What was it about Befrienders that had the pull for you?
Well, I think it has to do more about my personality, because I don't really like to put myself out there. I'm more like an introvert person. Yeah, introverted person. I prefer to be behind the scene kind of guy, um, being the follower instead the leader, things like that. Yeah. So looking at befrienders, it's something um, very um, good for me, because I just have to be behind the phone, yeah, answering the call, talking to people, listening to people, yeah, instead of having to, yeah, go out there, put myself up front. So I mean, that's the first draw that yeah, drawn me towards the befrienders.
Okay, I would agree with the bit that you're an introvert because I think the first conversation I had with you, I felt like, oh my goodness, what? How am I going to actually have a conversation? Because you seem very private, right? But it's very interesting. You're a very private person. You say you're an introvert, yet you feel the pull to be talking to people in your voluntary role, right? Or to be listening to people,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so what's the pull there? What drives you to want to listen to people for 2,340 hours I put up and 789? That's for 15 years you've been a volunteer,
Mm.
right? When I spoke to a friend of mine, actually Justin Victor, because he's with Befrienders, and I said, who can I speak to? Someone who has volunteered long enough, and that's when he told me about you. And to have volunteered for a cause for 15 years, right? There must be a very strong need, desire in you to keep you going in this, right? So let's just talk about what is it about listening to people that makes you want to be here?
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Mala, because um, to actually highlight that I've been a volunteer for 15 years, it's actually nothing compared to the many other volunteers who have been there for 20, 30, and there are some who have been a volunteer for 40 over years.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's really amazing. And when I first started to join and I meet these wonderful people, I have always wondered to myself, what made them stay that long? I mean, why do they stay on so long? Yeah, coming for their duty shift, answering the calls, listening to people week after week after week for years. Yeah.
Right.
And it it's a challenge for me to also emulate them, because I feel that there must be something that push them to do that. And I commit myself to it, and I realized that um, just by listening you actually gain a lot more. It's the same, it's the same thing when you give instead of receiving, but you give, right? You know, the act of giving itself, it's so big, it's so huge. And it's the same thing as listening is actually an a skill. It's not easy being a listener, because a lot of people say, yeah, I can listen to you, but do they really listen to you? And to me, when I pick up the calls and I listen to um, all those people who actually pour their soul out, um, first of all, I feel privileged because they trusted me with their problems. And yeah, second of all, I feel that just giving them that short period of time, 30 minutes, 1 hour, just being there listening to them, it actually helps them get through with their day, and that
Mm.
I think is the main push factor why I stayed on, because every week when I come in for my duty, there is always um I always get calls, and yeah, and there are always people in distress, people who actually need that someone to actually listen to them.
Yeah, you said two things which is really interesting, because you said that listening or giving is you get a lot, you receive a lot when you do this, right?
Mm,
So let's talk a little bit about receiving, because that sounds odd, because a lot of times when we look at a voluntary function, we are looking at you being the bigger person, the giver, who's making the world a better place. I mean, you're doing all of that, but what you said, it was very interesting to say that you actually receive a lot. So let's talk a bit about what you've received. So in your 15 years of volunteering and giving a meal to another Malaysian who is in distress, who is in need, who's having suicidal thoughts, uh, these must be very, very difficult moments for people, right?
yeah.
And as you listen, I'm not too sure, how exactly it is. But what do you see? What have you experienced at the end where you feel you're receiving? What have you received so far?
Um, it's more of that trust that you actually build with the caller,
Right.
and it might not look like much, but as a listener, right, when you actually get that kind of connection that you build with the caller, and um you have to keep in mind that this is like the first time that the two of you talk to each other. So basically, it's just like someone completely like calling the hotline, speaking to a stranger,
Mm,
and straight away within that few minutes, gain that trust and talk to you about whatever troubling them.
mm,
And being in that position, right? You feel that okay, they are actually um, putting their trust in you to be
mm.
able to help them go through that difficult situation, and the time that you actually put on and give to them, it's actually very valuable because you are actually giving them that space, that safe space and time to talk to you.
Right. And so what you're saying is that you talk to a total stranger who entrusts their very personal side to a total stranger, and and that's trust, is what you say, right?
Yeah.
And you did mention that you said, by listening to people, they get on with life. So tell us, in your experience, how do you know when a caller speaks to you, and they are how do you gauge a call after you've spoken, and know that I've helped this person to move on?
All right. Okay. So basically, like in a normal kind of settings, right? When you have a friend coming up to you with their problems, and then they talk to you about the problems, yeah, you do listen to them, but you most of the time you listen with the intent to reply. So
Right.
you listen in, you like formulate things in your mind, like, okay, how do I help this friend of mine get out of the situation? So you are like actively seeking for solution. So that's
Right.
the normal setting. But when you are with the befrienders, right, it's actually totally not like that. So
Mm-hmm.
when you are listening in, you are listening in to understand, to
Mm,
empathize.
mm,
And what we are doing as a listener is we actually listen into the person instead of listening to their problems. Yeah, everybody has problems, and it's all sort of problems, but what we do is we actually focus on the person, and we focus on the feelings that this person is feeling. And
mm.
that's how we actually provide the emotional support, by listening into the feelings, by focusing on the feelings, and most importantly, going into the pain, because not many
Wow.
people are comfortable going into the pain, because what they want is, they not they probably will tell you, it's okay, things will get better, you will get through this. They want to be positive, tell them all those cliche that this will pass, there's silver lining in every cloud, things like that. But yeah, but that's not what we do. What we do is we get further into the pain, because when someone is suffering, there's always layers of feelings. Someone might be feeling angry, but why are they angry? So there's always, like, there's a sadness in there, there's a frustration in there, there's a helplessness that they feel. So we go deeper into layers, and at the end of the call, that the person is feeling better, because you can actually sense the change of the tone of voice when they're talking to you. So initially when they call, they might be crying, and we do get a lot of people who started the call just by crying. You can't even get any word out because they just like, and you can't even catch what they are talking, but you can actually feel the distress in that. So what we do is we give them time, we let them cry it out, and then we slowly build the trust and start talking and listening to them. And at the end of the call, they are no longer crying. They feel held in a sense. Yeah, the problems are still there. It's not solved, but
Right.
at least they are feeling relief from the emotional burden that they are feeling. And
Wow.
by clearing this up, right, they can actually have a clearer mind
Right.
to to think of the problem and to come up with a solution to their problem themselves.
Nice, nice. Wow, you've taken us to a very, very interesting space, because, you said something that I think is profound, and I like to find out more because you said you don't listen to the problem, but you listen to the person, right?
Mhm.
um and that's a big thing. So can you help us, people who are the non-befrienders, those who are not trained to go into the pain, because that was the other big thing that you said, it's about going into the pain with the person, right? So when you
Mhm.
say listen to the person, you did say listening to the person means going, traveling with the person to the emotions and the feeling the person is experiencing, which means that you're peeling the layers to go deeper and deeper with the person, and the person doesn't have to visit the pain alone. That's what I'm hearing. Did I understand it correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
All
Yep.
right. So
Mm.
as you do that, give us a bit of tips, right? Because you also said that it's not about listening to the problem, and I think a lot of us who are either not trained or who are so carried away about being effective, being efficient, cut short your conversation, come quickly to the point, right? Because
Mhm.
that's a corporate conversation. In fact, that's the home conversation nowadays, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got no time for conversations, right? So how do we differentiate when we're listening to a person and when we're listening to the problem?
Okay. Because yeah, so every when someone is talking, they will always talk about their problems, right? But as a listener, so um what you want to do is you want to actually empathize with the person, and for you to be able to empathize, right, you need to be non-judgmental. That's very
Mm,
important, because
mm,
the moment that you actually, even inside of you, in your heart, if you actually pass judgment to that person, like for example, you have a friend who has been calling you every week talking about the same problem again and again and
mm.
again, right? And you might be feeling like, oh man, this guy again, still harping about the same thing. Yeah, so the moment you've said that, right, then that's it, you lost your value as a listener already, because at that time you're already trivializing their problems, you're already taking them for granted. So what so being non-judgmental is very important. So in order to be non-judgmental, you need to be self-aware of your own values. It's okay if you don't believe in certain things, but you need to be self-aware about that before you can be a good listener. So when um, someone is talking about the problem, there's always the feelings that attach to it. So what you want to do is you want to actually focus on those feelings. Like, let's
Right.
say if someone is rambling and rambling on about the government, for example, how they feel. So so frustrated with how they are handling this pandemic, the COVID-19 situation. So what you want to do is you want to focus on what that person is feeling. For example, okay, you can sense there's a lot because the person is speaking in a very high voice, high tone, using a lot of curse words. So you focus on that. So what what are the feelings that that you can actually pick up from that? So most likely rage. There's a lot of
Mm.
rage there, anger. So you focus on that. So you focus on that rage. So I can hear a lot of rage from you because of your frustration with how the government is handling the whole situation. Talk to me more about this rage that you're feeling, and
Uh,
that will actually lead to other feelings there.
right,
Yeah, perhaps like a sense of helplessness,
right.
and it will go more into the person, and they will actually start talking more about themselves, how this whole thing is affecting them. Probably they have lost someone they love because of COVID, things like that, and that will actually go into grief, into sadness, into shock, disbelief, things like that. So there's a lot of feelings that you can actually pick up just from listening to people. And when you actually unravel these feelings, it provide them the opportunity to actually just talk about it freely without judgment, and that helps a lot to the person.
So I feel like you are giving me a lesson in emotional intelligence. Oh, and you're doing it really so well and so beautifully. So you said non-judgmental, right? So I think we all tend to say, oh, we don't like to be judged and we need to be non-judgmental. And what you're saying is that hold on to your own preferences, your own biasness through your self awareness, because this
Hmm.
is not about you. So when
Yeah.
you're listening into another person, it is about them. You don't have to bring your thoughts, your feelings, your values into the conversation because now you're paying attention to that person. And whatever the person says, right? What you do is that you focus into what the person is experiencing emotionally, right? And what you
Precisely.
did also mention is that you label this emotion, you name them for them, right? You name it for them.
Mhm.
And you name it for them when they agree with you, which is what we say is empathy in this part of the world, right? So when you empathize with them and you're able to label, then you're able to dig deeper and say, what else is coming through this conversation? And that's how you dig deep into the emotions of the person with the person. And
Yeah.
when you say on the path of emotions, is that what you mean by non-judgmental? Because what you were saying also earlier is that people feel more free to allow you into this very private spaces, because this is really vulnerable to let you into how I'm feeling, because
Hmm.
these are feelings that where I'm seen to be weak, not strong enough, not good enough sometimes, or not
Hmm.
strong enough the way the world wants to be. So is that what people feel when you're walking with them and you're giving them, telling them basically it's okay, what you're feeling is really okay, it's really normal? Is that what makes people value you holding their hands through, digging deep into what might feel like a bit dark to walk alone?
Yeah, that's perfect how you actually put it. It's actually validation of how they are feeling, because for example, if you're like a teenager, right, and you go up to your parent and you tell them that I'm feeling stressed because of online learning and things like that. So a reactive parent might just say, just get used to it, this might go on for a while, you'll get used to it, you'll get past it. They're just deflecting, so they are not really trying to empathize, trying to understand what the child is actually going through. So yeah, so when we actually validate their pain, when we actually validate what they are feeling, we actually tell them that it's actually okay to feel what you're feeling. That's because there's no right or wrong, because we are all human. We will go through a whole range of emotions that we are feeling, and to have someone to actually validate that, it helps, because it feels like yeah, like you mentioned, someone is actually walking walking side by side with you, instead of being in a higher position and just just telling you that you shouldn't feel this way. You shouldn't be sad, or you shouldn't be crying because it's not right. Yeah, instead of that, but instead you feel that someone is actually next to you, journeying through you throughout this difficult time, even though it's only through a phone call.
Mm, nice. My goodness, I love the way you're expressing. I'm going to like go a little bit more, but before that, I just want to say hello to our very loyal friends and some new friends. Alia Karen says, "Thank you for being kind, both of you." Thank you, Alia. Alia is the founder of Yayasan Health on World. Yeah. And Anil says, good to see me. Yes, that's me. Nilam, welcome. Nilam Intias is saying hello. Chetan is saying hi. Hi, Chetan. He says, I'm lovely. I'd like to read you the comment from Vernon. Vernon says, lending an ear to a stranger in distress is actually quite a noble act of charity, more so in these very challenging times. Salute people who do this, right? Now, as I read out Vernon's comment, I'm just curious now. I just read an article from Malaysia Kini where you were quoted that the number of calls in distress has increased by 50%, right? Is the number still at 50% or has it increased right now at Befriender's?
Yeah, the trend has always been increasing. So you kind of like get a feeling that as we actually being dragged through this pandemic, there are more and more people who are being affected in one way or another, and they are actually looking for avenues for help, physical and also emotionally. So when it comes to the number of calls that we are receiving, yeah, it's going up and up. And um, there's always like a limit to the number of calls that we can receive because of resources and also the time. Because um, you can imagine that if we, for example, if we spend like a lot of time talking to someone, so basically if there are other people calling in, they might not get through because the line is busy. Yeah. So there are always like a limitation to the kind of numbers that we can actually get. Yeah, but at this point in time, yeah, it is on an increasing trend.
Right. So that means what you're saying is that you do have abandoned calls. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
it's
Okay.
yeah it's not abandoned call, but it's like more like calls that didn't go through. Yeah, so meaning
Because
in
no one
situation,
was available
yeah, no
to
no
take
yeah
the
no
call.
no volunteers are available. Yeah, so in
Okay.
situation like this, we normally tell them that to try and call again in a few minutes after that. Yeah,
Right,
so
right.
hopefully they get through, yeah, when they
Okay.
try.
And how, if you look at the trend now, right? How often do you, how regularly as when you're on call, right? How often do you have calls not attended to?
um it's actually hard to tabulate that because all calls are private and confidential, so we don't actually keep we don't have actually have a system that can actually register, you know,
Right.
the number of calls that come in and things like that. What we do is we just register. Okay, we get one call, so we just take one. Yeah, things like we just register the number of calls that we get in. But at the same time, we know that there are many calls they are not being answered because we get a lot of complaints from people saying that they tried calling in, but no one is picking up the
Uh,
phone. Yeah.
okay, okay. Is it because we lack volunteers, or is there any other reason why we're not able to meet the number of calls?
Yeah, that's one of the main reason. Actually, we lack
Lack one.
volunteers. Yeah, and that is also mainly because during this pandemic and because of the movement control, we have been unable to recruit new volunteers. We normally do it 3 times, 2 to 3 times a year, where we get new volunteers to join Befrienders KL. But for
Mm.
the past 2 years, we were unable to do so. So that's like 2 years without new volunteers coming in. So our numbers also have been stagnant for quite some time now. Yeah.
Thank you. That means you're not in, the calls have increased, but the number of volunteers have not increased.
Yeah,
It's the
that's
same.
right.
All right.
Mm,
And now, Roy, just as you say this, Vernon asked this very important question: how
mm.
can I become a befriender, and what does it take in terms of commitment and skill sets?
All right, thanks, Vernon. That's a good question, and you might be surprised when I tell you that anybody can be a good listener. Yeah, all it takes is determination, your own self determination, and commitment. Commitment is very important because in this line of work, you need to be committed to the cause. When it comes to skill sets, right, you don't have to worry much about that because we will actually train you in that matter, and you will go through training on all those skills that are needed for you to be listening to someone. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Vernon, you will automatically qualify. You're already an amazing listener. Vernon is a friend, so I can vote for that. So Vernon, we are expecting you to bring in a couple of friends to befriend us to increase the number of volunteers. Thank you, Vernon, for the question. Shamani says, selfless service to mankind. Uh, for the upliftment of the community, for the love of humanity. Absolutely commendable. Thank you very much. Now, Thirukesan, thank you, Thirukesan. It's nice to see you here. He says, yeah, another great session. Thank you, Thirukesan. But here's a question, I believe, for you. How do you manage your own emotions and feelings as you heal others of their pain?
Ah, this is a very tough question.
I know.
Um, and yeah, it is it is very important, and that's why self-awareness is key in situations like this, because there are instances where you are actually talking on the phone and someone is actually talking about their problems, but you can actually relate to the problem because it's something that you have gone through and it might affect you a lot. And
Mm,
that and and when we talk about being a listener, right, most of the time what we feel is a sense of helplessness,
mm,
because when we hear the stories, right, we really do want to help them. We want to we have this urge to actually solve their problem, make them feel better, put them in a safe place, things like that. But and this sense of helplessness can be overwhelming, so you need to be aware of that, and you need to be aware of your own feelings when it comes to that. And that's why with Befrienders Kuala Lumpur, when you do your duty shift, right, you don't work alone, you normally work with another or one, two, or three more person with you. So at the end of the shift, right, you get to um, discharge whatever emotions that you're feeling.
right,
So
right.
it takes training, because what you want to do is, that's why your duty shift is actually fixed to a fixed day and also time, so that you know when you actually come in for duty on that specific time and day, okay, you put on your befriender hat, so you become a
Mm,
befriender, and you put your whole life behind. And yeah, and then when you finish your shift, you take off your befriender hat, put it down, leave the center, and then you join with your own life. So it's a kind of training that you need to do to be able to actually separate your own emotion and feelings, so that it doesn't affect you.
mm, mm.
Yeah, when you
And
finish this.
when you were first, when you were initially into this voluntary service, right? I'm sure initially you would have had a transition where it was difficult. You understand it. To
Mm.
understand and to become is two different things, right?
Yeah,
To understand it, at a logical level and say, I need to take off my hat. I'm putting on a role, and this is what I'm
mm,
doing. I mean, I think we are all very good at saying that.
yeah.
So if you can go back a little bit and remember the times where you took back, say, some of the I'm sure heart wrenching issues that you hear, because you need to care enough to want to do this. So on one
Mhm.
hand, you are unconditional, you care, you want to help people. It's a very funny thing, right? Your objective is to help, yet you're helpless.
Yeah.
It's really an irony, right? So you want to help, but you know you're taking on the position of being helpless in that sense, right?
Mhm.
So initially, like when if you remember the first, when you were newly a volunteer, how do you remember your struggles and how did you actually transition?
All right. Okay. So that's the beauty of being in this organization, because
Mm,
I can actually tell you that we are surrounded by other volunteers who are
mm,
caring, who I have to say honestly, I really look up to them. These people
mm,
are really inspirational, because when I first came in, right, and I listen to them when I go to training, I listen to them, I go through the initiation, and I answered my first call, and there was always, because there was always someone at my side who
mm,
supported me.
mm,
And throughout my years of being a volunteer, that has always been the case. And I was never put in a position that I felt alone.
um,
And I know that even if I had like a very very bad call or very difficult call, I can always turn to any one of them and get
mm,
the support that I needed. So
mm,
even in during my early years, we've been
mm.
trained to actually do that, because um, supporting each other is very important. And mainly because all the calls are private and confidential, so you don't want to be like um, going back home and then like suddenly talking to your spouse or to someone else about, oh, I had this call, blah blah blah, even though you don't mention the name, but it's actually a breach of confidentiality. So that's the main thing that we don't do. Yeah. But when you are at the center together with your fellow volunteer, yeah, it's okay to actually just discharge what you're feeling, the feelings that came from the call that you just had.
So when you say discharge, what you do is you discharge the emotions or the feelings that you're experiencing, but
Mm.
you don't disclose what was told to you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So basically, let's say for example, you feel you really wanted to help but you can't, right? So you discharge the sense of helplessness that you feel. You just, you talk to your partner, you just say, ah, I just wish I can really help this person, because um he just needed money. I could have just given him the money and could have solved the problem. Yeah, things like that. So you just discharge. Yeah,
So
that
how do you, how successful are you with this discharge?
it 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 depends. Actually, it depends. I guess in a way, the longer you do it, the more experience you get. And I wouldn't use the word easier it gets, but yeah, in a sense, yeah, it gets better over
Mm.
time. Yeah.
Nice. You
But
get more practice that those muscles are built for you to operate in that way. It's what you're
mm,
saying. Because what I'm also hearing is that your support system is great. From Tiru Kesan's question, what you're saying is that there's a good support system. There's also a very good structure for your training to prepare you to know what you will be experiencing to protect you. So, which is why the training is given to you also to discharge and a platform there for you to be able to discharge with people who know how to support you. So
yeah.
what you're saying in a very nice way is that in many ways, while you are giving to the speakers who call in, your own pains are also met, and you make sure it is in the system to discharge your pain before you leave and go back to your role in the house.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
Precisely.
ideal. That's basically ideal, right? And
Mm,
of course, the self awareness, because you also need to know why some issues are affecting you more, because probably those issues are something to do with your own life and you can relate to your own pain and you might be visiting your own pain. Has there been situations where you listen to a call and it had triggered one of your memories and one of your pains?
Yeah, of course, because we all have gone through challenges and pains in life, and after like you aptly put, like listening in for like all those like thousands of hours, of course there will be kind of something like similar, pain that
Yes.
comes to you, and trigger your own memories on your
And so when
phone.
you get triggers, right? And let's say you go home and you get these triggers because it could have triggered a memory that was, really low in your system. What do you
Mhm.
then do?
So what I normally do is I make sure that I actually discharge it before I actually get home. So
Okay.
in that way I don't carry it with me,
Mm.
and then that feeling will actually linger and makes you feel uncomfortable for a few days. So that's not good, because in the long run it might causes burnout to
Yeah.
to to you, and to our volunteers.
Mm, mm, mm. Nice. Thank you very much. I'm going to address two questions that's come up. One is from Daniel. Daniel Go, thanks for joining us. How do you qualify volunteers if they're fit to be one? So he's basically asking how to check for fit. Are listening skills the only criteria? The danger is when volunteers give feedback which may be unqualified input. But I think there is no giving of feedback because you are trained not to, right?
So the main thing that people mistaken that we do is we give advice, but that is a huge no for Befrienders KL. We
Right.
don't give advice.
Mm. So basically, the fit is very much your intention of wanting to listen, and even
Mhm.
listening skills you're trained for it. Is that what you're saying? If I become
yeah
a
so,
friend.
so the main skill is active listening skills, but of course there are a lot of other skills involved. And and so you might be like wondering, like, so what happens if actually someone asks you for advice, someone
Mm,
actually tell you the problem and tell me what to do. What should I do? I mean,
mm,
they always call us a counselor or the expert, things like that, right? So what to do. So first of all, right, it's not fair for someone to have just listened to you for like 20 minutes to be the one to like, oh, okay, I know exactly what's going on, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. So that's not fair. Actually, it doesn't give you that power to actually tell someone what to do with their life. So when
mm,
when someone actually um, us directly to give advice, right? So what what do you get from that? So you can actually sense the feeling of desperation, that
mm,
they really do not know what else to do.
mm,
They have tried everything but nothing works, and they are desperate. So you
mm.
want to actually focus on that desperation and explore that instead.
Nice.
So it
So,
yeah yeah sorry, God.
no, I think you're going to finish it. Sorry.
Yeah
So, what you're
so
basically saying is that even if people ask you for advice, you're looking for what does the person want. When the person is asking for advice, what is the person experiencing in terms of emotion? And you still dig into what the person is trying to say, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's right. And because you see, when they are actually in that situation, right, their mind is all like jumbled up. There's a lot of things going on at the same time. But if you can actually unravel one feeling at a time,
Mm,
and hopefully, at the end of the call they have a clearer mind, so they can actually come up with the solution themselves. So what
right.
we want to do is we want to actually empower them to be
Mm,
able to make the choices in their life, whether it's right or wrong. That's not for us to judge, but we want them to be able to make that clear choices that is necessary for them to make to get through with their life.
nice. So, Adi, am I understanding you? Because this has always puzzled me about listening, right? Which is
Mm.
why I don't volunteer. Because it's like not not answering questions and just listening is something that I need to train myself for. I'm better now, but I've got a long way to go. But I appreciate it a lot when I have friends who just listen in. And one of the big takeaways I'm getting from you is this: when people are experiencing emotion, they can't think well. And what you do as a befriender is clear the cloud of emotions for them, clear the path for them because you know the answer resides within them. And what you're doing is by helping them to clear the clouds of emotions, they can become calm. And when they become calm, they are able to make their own decisions.
Yeah, so
And
it
that's what
doesn't, yeah, doesn't mean necessarily that at the end of the call they will be able to do that,
yeah,
but yeah, at least they know that when they need someone to talk to, they can call this number. And sometimes it takes a few calls. We have
yeah.
callers who have been calling us for a period of time,
Mm,
um, to, yeah, to be able to just ventilate, to be able to talk to someone and
nice.
things like that. Yeah, and so you also have to remember that, we we are also a suicide prevention center, so we get a lot of callers who call in, and this is like, near to like 40% of our callers who actually have suicidal thoughts. So they might,
40%.
40%, yeah.
Mm.
So they might like, ask you questions like, give me one good reason why I shouldn't kill myself now. And they are on the call to you, they call you, and then they actually ask you that question straight away. So you see, it's the decision that they are making. So, I mean, we are a suicide prevention center, but if someone is going to kill themselves, we're not going to tell them that, oh, no, 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 please don't do that, think about your family, think about the consequences, things like that. We don't say that. But what we want to do is, okay, so probably if you get that question, what we can actually say back is, sounded like you sounded very distressed about something that you really wanted to end your life because of
Mm.
the pain that you are experiencing. Tell me
Right,
more about this pain.
right,
So we get them to talk more about the pain that they are suffering,
right.
that pushes them to actually wanting to kill themselves.
Instead of dealing with the problem, lah, because
Yeah,
you can't solve the problem anyway, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's really very interesting, and it's probably an irony, right? So if you look at the calls that's coming through, especially during this pandemic times, right?
Hmm.
Have there reasons for this? Is there a trend in the reasons for distress right now, or is there a trend in the reasons for suicidal thoughts that you see, which is different compared to before the pandemic?
It Okay. The reason for people to call us has always been quite consistent over the years, and it has always been, the top reason has always been mental health issues, and that number has been increasing because the pandemic is bringing out a lot of, other mental health issues, like people who previously never had any problem with mental health issues now are experiencing it because of the extra stress and anxiety that they are feeling. um, so we also see an increase in the number of calls that we get due to financial and job related issues, and
Yeah.
that's mainly because of the pandemic. And that is, more on, like a physical type of problems, because they need a job to be able to earn money, to be able to feed their family, things like that. Yeah. So, those require a different kind of approach, or help. Yeah, but also their emotional well-being needs to be addressed, because they are feeling a lot of stress and anxiety, and we want to let them know that at any point in time, when if they do feel suicidal, or they do feel that there's no way out for them, they might as well just die. They don't have to feel alone or be alone because of that thoughts, because sometimes
Mm,
it's quite scary to talk about these kind of things to your family members or friends. Yeah, but they can actually call us and talk to us about it, and that
mm.
will actually lessen the burden that they are feeling inside.
Right. So you do see a trend moving, and one of the trends that you're seeing is that because loss of jobs and loss of income is creating a lot of financial stress. And financial stress, I mean, finances are really central to our well-being in being able to do a lot of things, right? So it really
Yeah.
robs you of your autonomy in many ways. So it's a much bigger thing than we really think it is. And not being able to do what you were able to do is, I don't know what's the word. I think it's quite scary. So tell me, you say that these calls are increasing, and people are financially distressed and all of that. And in your opinion, or from your experience, why do these people need to call befrienders? Is it because they don't have anyone in their personal life?
It's more like sometimes they don't want to burden other people, because from experience, some of them will say that, oh, like let's say if you are in a if you are married to someone and you are actually having financial difficulty, and then you also notice that your spouse also just lost their job and also
Mm,
struggling, yeah, so you don't want to actually heap more burden into them, so
right.
you don't really feel like talking to them because of that. Yeah, so that's one of the reason why they might look elsewhere to talk to someone about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you're saying that they, despite their pain, they don't want to add the pain to the people they love.
Yeah, that's right.
And
So yeah,
besides that, yeah.
so that's true mainly for adults, but for children,
Mm,
it's because we do get a lot of calls from, yeah, from children, from teenagers, because their voices are not being heard by the adults in their life.
wow.
So it's quite sad thinking about it, because they are in a, for example, they are in a good family, they have like parents who are earning, surviving well during this pandemic, but they are going through their own struggles. But then when they try to talk about it with their parents, and then their parents actually berate them and say, you should be thankful because you have food on the table,
Mm,
you have a bed in your room, things like that. So they feel lost, because they are not being listened into. So
right,
yeah, so they
right.
look for other ways to actually ventilate. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So tell me, from your experience, when children call you or teenagers call the center, what are they looking for in terms of listening? What are how do they want to be heard? What are their thoughts and feelings that they feel that immediate environment, immediate
Mm.
circle is not listening to?
I think mainly they want validation for
Okay.
what they are going through, meaning
Yeah.
that yes, I might be 12 years old, but I can also feel suicidal,
Yeah.
and that's okay to feel that way, because you
Mm,
are going through such a hard time that the pain is really affecting you. And
mm,
it's really important not to belittle whatever problem that is causing the pain, because it might be like something like they just lost their pet, but
mm,
to them it's a
mm,
huge thing, it's really
mm,
affecting them.
mm.
Yeah. And as a listener, it needs validating.
Right,
So
right.
that pain needs to be validated, that emotion needs to be validated. And
Because what they're experiencing is their reality. Don't judge it from your perspective as
yeah,
it.
precisely. And secondly, it's the time that you actually give them, because they do appreciate that, because they feel that all their life no one has ever take them seriously, given them that time to actually just talk, because they always get brushed aside. But when you give them that time and you really listen into them, they really appreciate that, because they feel that, hey, I'm important enough to be listening to. I mean, this person on the other line is listening to me. So
Mm,
they feel good, because that time is being spent with them. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Thank you, thank you. I'm just going to read out some comments and one question before I go into a quick rapid fire. Panir Paul Rajamani says volunteers at Befrienders and similar services are amazing humans. These are great souls who have learned to give unconditional love to another person without judging and expecting any reward. We truly appreciate you. So that's for you and for your team. Brian Isaac, who is actually a teacher, an amazing teacher, he says yes, and he listens to a lot of teenagers. So he's echoing you. He's saying teenagers are being ignored because parents are either too busy or they're not being understood because they are being belittled, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And that teenagers need to be heard as they need attention. Alia Karen has a question for you, and a compliment for you. She says, Adi, firstly, this I'm reading like her, okay? Adi, firstly, you're a comfort to my tired eyes on a Friday. Stay and look cool. Question. Can you share some gender stats and also ages, like do you get more male or female calls from more males or females? Can you tell if there are more of the older age groups or younger, as I'm sure the voice tells you some things? The
Mm.
voice, I'm not sure, because I also sound very young, right, Adi? But never
Yeah.
mind. I'll let you answer that question. So, gender statistics, age, gender.
Yeah, I can share that. So, gender-wise, we do receive more calls from females.
Mm,
So that should be around like 60 to 65% of our
mm,
callers are female.
right.
Yeah, and age-wise, we do get calls from wide ranging range of age, but the huge percentage are below 40 years old. More
Wow.
more than half are below 40, and I can't be too specific because most of them are also unknown, because some of them don't really reveal their age, so we wouldn't be able to guess that. But there are actually more younger people who actually contacted us.
All right, thank you. So, Alia, I hope you got the answer in Adi's comforting look and cool voice. Okay, so basically, what you're saying is that you have people from all ages, but there is, I think I read it in your article as well, that generally, people below 40, there's an increase in the numbers as well
Mm,
as children.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that's what you're saying. All right. So, very quickly, so I want to really thank you. It's almost one. I'm going to ask you very quick questions so that you can give us a bit of your wisdom before you leave, right? And so, tell me, Adi, in your 15 years, can you share with us one memorable moment that you've had? Something that sticks in your memory in the last 15 years as a volunteer.
um I would say it's the friendship that I've built with my fellow volunteers, and I really do treasure that a lot. And we because we always like deal with a lot of serious calls and things like that. And
Mm,
yeah, we sometimes on a good day we might get like good calls, on a bad day we might get bad calls. But yeah, but throughout that 15 years, the consistent always the consistent factor for me has always been my fellow volunteers, and that
okay.
has always been a very comforting thought for me. Every time I think of them, I feel so supported. I feel so relief. Yeah, it's a huge
Um,
impact on my life. Yeah.
okay, we need to get friends like that, then we'll sound cool like you. What is the most difficult call you've taken, Adi?
um okay, so difficult call would be something um with someone who actually on the brink of suicide. So
Mm,
basically, for all the calls that we get, right, we will what we do is we will actually assess their suicidal risk. So basically, if someone has suicidal intention, and
mm,
then they have method of doing it, and they already thought of a time to do it, then it's very high risk already. So what
mm,
what we can do as a listener is try as much as we can to keep them talking on the phone,
mm.
just go through them with their pain. And I've had a few of those, yeah, quite a number actually, throughout my years. And and it's always very difficult because at the end of the call you wouldn't know for sure whether they actually proceeded with their plan or not, because
Yeah.
all you can think about is you can just hope and wish that you've done your best to actually prevent them from actually killing themselves on, yeah, right after you end the call.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a situation where you handled a suicidal call and found out that the person committed suicide? Have you ever had that?
Yeah, thankfully no such thing. Yeah, I mean no such situation.
You
And
don't know, yeah, because
mm,
I can't imagine
yeah,
doing that. So,
and because so normally what happens is at the end of the call, before we end the call, right? So let's say if someone is at a very high risk of suicide, so what we do is we actually ask them again, so do you feel like killing yourself tonight? So we always ask them that before we end the call. Yeah, and most of the time the answer that we will get is uh maybe not tonight, but I'm not sure about tomorrow.
whoa,
So that's actually good
that,
enough. Good
yeah,
enough because you
yeah,
actually buy time, and
right.
what you do is you tell them that tomorrow, can you promise me that you'll call us again if
Wow,
you are going through uh, this strong intention of
wow,
killing yourself? Yeah. So
wow.
that's the most that we can do. Yeah.
That's there's just so much of love in just hearing you say it, Adi. Like, I mean, because I think in even in friendships, people get tired of listening to the complaints and the problems, right? Where
Mm, mm.
or even in families, like, stop telling me the same old thing over and over again. And here you are saying, good that you're feeling okay today, but tomorrow, can you promise? I just think that's absolutely so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What's your one advice for people who are experiencing stress?
Okay. um, you don't have to suffer alone. Find the people around you who you can trust and talk to them. And yeah, and worst come to worst, if you don't have anybody, you can always call the Befrienders, because
Oh,
our hotline is 24 hours. Yeah, so at any point, yeah, in the day or at night, even like 2 3 a.m. in the morning, yeah, there's always someone to call.
nice, nice. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you a couple. I had another question for you, which I'm not going to ask because I wanted to ask you, what's your advice for people who are listening to other people in stress or distress? But I think you've given us a lot of golden nuggets, which I'm going to summarize shortly.
Okay.
So we're going to go into what I call very quick rapid fire. You just need to finish this sentence in your cool Adi way. All right. Pertpal Singh Kosa says, hi, Malar. And I'm sure you're saying hi, Adi. So, Pertpal, welcome to the show. Pertpal is our very own author from Malaysia who's written a book called Thrive. So, let's look at the rapid fire if you're ready, Adi. To
All right.
listen means,
um to understand.
nice. Being whole means, being
um
whole.
Being selfless.
Wow. Wow. And I leave my footprint via Befrienders by.
Being the best that I can and giving my time to them
And my 15 years in Befrienders has shaped me.
to be a better human being.
Adi, thank you very, very much. In your just coolest way, I feel very, very inspired. Thank you very much for joining us, for inspiring us, for listeners. And if you know of people, yeah, just go and look out for befrienders and become a volunteer if you want to be a better listener, right? Free skills that you can
Yeah.
learn. So, Adi, thank you very much. We want to thank you and your team, all the people who support you, who make you who you are, whom you have mirrored, whom you have modeled. Thank all of you for being a friend for people who don't have a friend and for always encouraging people to say, please call back. I'm here, right here, waiting for you. For saying that, because sometimes even family members don't do that. Thank you for telling us that. Thank you for sharing with us that when you're listening, helping, and thank you for helping us understand listening actually is listening to the people and not to the problem, and that we need to listen being non-judgmental, being aware, and to label this emotion and walk hand in hand with that person to the dark spaces that they are afraid to either walk alone or afraid that people will judge them, right? Thank you for sharing all of this. And thank you also for giving us tips on why it's important for us as we listen that we need to discharge and know how we move on from one role to another role. Now this is the month of August. Really want to thank you for your 15 years that you've given in nation building, in making Malaysia a better place, because a lot of times we don't see the support that you are giving as to Befrienders is giving, and through you in making Malaysia a better place, because we're always looking at doing big things to be part of a better nation, right?
Mhm.
And we can only be a better nation if we all become better citizens. And you are actually showing us, how to be just better citizens by being a better human. With that, Adi, thank you very much for your time. If I may say, God bless you. Really very grateful for the time to have got to know you and to be inspired by your cool wisdom. So thank you, Adi. I hope I'll see you again.
All right.
Wishing you all the best.
Thanks, Mala. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome. Is there anything else you'd like to say before you say goodbye?
Yeah, I think I would also like to add that um, thank you to you too, because you are also, you know, providing the platform. So you are also um, adding into, uh, I mean the whole idea of, yeah, making this nation a better place by making the citizens better. Yeah. So thanks, Mala. This is really a good initiative, good
Thank
effort.
you. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so encouraged. So, people, let's thank Adi. And, as we thank Adi, perhaps you can send some blessing to him and to his family and to all the people in Befrienders that we may not call, we may not meet, who are giving 3 hours minimally a week and one night a month for years. And according to Adi, there are some people who are volunteering for 40 years. For all the years that, all the listening years that they give, and you don't know, um, this is the time to thank. And yeah, with that, have a beautiful weekend. Know that you're not alone. Know that you can call Befrienders, and you can call some of us here too. So thank you, Adi. Have a great weekend, and yeah, stay blessed.
All right. Stay.
All right. So, for those, all our friends who've joined us over and over again, we want to really thank you for your support. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I just want to end this, and before I end this, I want to say that we've had a rough week this week. Kirtana, who is our creative person, who's always managing the show, has just lost her dad to COVID, and it's grief is really near, fear is really near. So please stay safe and say a prayer for Kirtana and her dad, that they would heal and come out of. I don't know whether they can come out, but heal and be able to move again. But as I say this, I'm sharing this because really, folks, please be very, very careful and stay safe. Until I meet you next week with a very good friend of mine who's agreed to share her personal story, and she's known to be a very private person. So I'm not going to reveal her identity yet, but she's agreed to share her story, how she makes this amazing things and does amazing things for children in her own way. And we will be meeting her next week here at the same time, 12 o'clock Friday, to listen to a story about what we all can do to be better humans, to be better citizens of Malaysia, to build the nation that we want. With that, have a beautiful weekend. Signing off, this is Malhar from Hearts and Minds. Have a good week.